Shooty McBang Bang. Propaganda. Maybe a zombie? Welcome to Thrack Ops. Greetings, everybody. It's your host, Thrack, once again. Hope everybody is doing well. It is time for episode 11. And on this episode, we are going to be talking about Black Ops 2. This game was released November 13th, 2012 for the PC, PlayStation 3, and the Xbox 360. Developed, of course, by Treyarch. This is, I would say, the game where they leap past Infinity Ward to become the A developer, or maybe like an A1, A2 situation, probably depending on who you ask. Last time we talked about Modern Warfare 3, and, Modern Warfare 3, it was just another just kind of COD game at the time, and it comes off a bit bland in places. It's not a bad game by any means. I did enjoy it, but I think with all of the internal issues that was plaguing its development, it kind of just resulted in a game that just feels like it's kind of just going through the motions, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but we had been kind of going through the motions since 2007 or maybe even prior. So it felt like it was time for kind of a more fresher entry in the series, and really Black Ops 2 is that game. Like, for this one, Treyarch, they come in as seasoned veterans. This isn't Infinity Ward kind of splintering its development team and lawsuits and everything, and then bringing in Sledgehammer, who were meant to be one thing but became a whole nother thing. Like, Treyarch, this was their third major game in the series. Well, fourth if you count. Well, yeah, fourth with Call of Duty 3, and they're seasoned. They know what they want to do, and they're kind of ready to give this series a much needed evolution. And it results in not just a very good game. Some people would argue this is one of the best, if not the very best, in the entire series. But really, this is the freshest entry since Modern Warfare 1 back in 2007. And I'll go into details about why it's so fresh later on. Now, I had zero, whatever I was trying to say, experience with this game before this review. Basically, between Modern Warfare 3 and Black Ops 6, which I ended up playing Black Ops 6 on Game Pass, but I'll talk about it when we get there. Everything in between, I knew absolutely nothing. I think I had just kind of fallen off the train at the time, or I was just, busy playing other games or pursuing other interests and hobbies, whatever, because a lot of the 2010s became like a blind spot for me as far as like gaming was concerned. It was just something that kind of fell into the background. So games like Black Ops 2, and then later on with Ghosts and Advanced Warfare and all those, I have nothing. Zero expectations or anything to go on for those games. So really, to me, it's the most exciting part of of the series, because I get to play these games for the first time. And Black Ops 2 really is the first one of those. And wow, it was pretty fantastic. A game that I regret not playing back in the day when it was big. I may have still had my 360 in 2012, or did it Red Ring at that point? It may have. I'm not sure. The timeline's a little fuzzy in my head. But another little interesting fun fact about this game is that 5 days later, on November 18th, 2012, this game was a launch title for the newly launched Wii U. So, and I remember Nintendo pushing this one pretty heavy back in the day. I mean, at this point in the series, like, this is like Call of Duty's riding the top of the heap, like, everybody knows about these games, everybody plays them, everybody shits on them. It was that point where everyone was hating it because it was the popular thing. So it just kind of made sense for for anybody to just kind of have this game for their console. Basically just like any Call of Duty game, just to have it for their system. And while Nintendo had Call of Duty games on the Wii prior to this, they were often compromised. Either, graphically they never looked as good. Some of them even had like cut content, like just levels would be missing, or like online multiplayer would be scrapped. So it was a case of if you played these games on the Wii back in the day, you played Black Ops, but you didn't play Black Ops. You know what I mean? But with the Wii U being on par graphically with the 360 and the PS3, we can now just get direct ports of these games. And so Black Ops 2 was there on launch day, and it was very popular. I remember it sold really well, and I think if you ask people who had a Wii U, they really enjoyed Black Ops 2. And when Nintendo shut down the Wii U servers a couple years back, I remember this game had a consistent online presence, and people were playing it up until the very end, just kind of hoping in vain they could keep it, because the game, I believe it also supported Wii Motion, like Wii Remote controls if you wanted to partake in that. So, but I have not played the Wii U version, so I won't really be discussing any differences between that and the regular version that we're all aware of. So if there are any unique things about Black Ops 2 as far as the Wii U version is concerned, please let me know. But otherwise, I played this game on the Xbox, so we are just going to be talking about that version. And when this game launched, its Metacritic, I believe, is somewhere in like the low mid 80s, and it made, I think it was like over $500 million in like its first like 24 hours or something like that. It was, at the time, considered the biggest entertainment launch of all time. And it held that record for like a year, because in 2013, we got GTA 5. And as we all know, GTA 5 became one of the biggest things ever, to where we are still waiting on that sequel all these years later. So, yeah, Black Ops 2 is a big deal, and despite I was surprised its Metacritic was like kind of low, but that could have just been like Call of Duty fatigue or whatever at the time. But if you ask people more retrospectively, they really, really praise this one. So it was one I was looking forward to, and I gotta say, I was pleasantly surprised about it. For a game that I had played for the first time, I was like, yeah, this is pretty goddamn good. So why don't we take a quick music break, and then we'll talk about the plot, and during that plot I will bring up some of the new things that happens in Black Ops 2. Stay tuned. So the story for this game takes place across two different timelines, pretty much. One takes place in like the mid to late 1980s, which is quite a few years after the original Black Ops. And then also there's a timeline that's happening in the year 2025, which is considered the near future, but now it's the near past. And I really did miss my chance to review this game in the year 2025. But hey, things happen, man. So we start in the year 2025, where U.S. Special Operations Team, a Special Operations Team led by David Mason and his partner Mike Harper, arrive at a place called the Vault, which is a top secret security location home. It's kind of almost like a retirement home, really, where an aging Frank Woods is there, whom they suspect could possess vital information into the whereabouts of a man named Raul Mendez. We will learn more about him as we go on. Woods concedes that Menendez has recently visited him and shows them a locket that the latter had left behind. And then Frank narrates several covert missions undertaken during his military career, which spans their previous encounters. And that's kind of what leads into the very first mission, called Pyrrhic Victory. I hope I'm saying that. Pyrrhic Victory. Pyrrhic Victory. I'm not sure. But what you notice right away with this first mission is there's a little like kind of briefing screen right ahead of it where you get to see, where you're going, the mission, all that kind of stuff. And it says, the name of the mission takes place in Angola in 1986. And your objective is to rescue Woods. And yeah, so you get to see that, which is different from what we've seen before, where the missions would just kind of go sequentially, like a lot of like story games would. But this kind of breaks it up mission by mission, which on the one hand is good for me, so I can kind of take notes in between missions and have good stopping points. But it's also cool to kind of like get in that kind of new aesthetic that the game is going for. And another really neat thing this game does is it lets you customize your loadout. So before, you just kind of had to deal with whatever guns they gave you for the mission, and you would just kind of go and, find guns kind of spread throughout the map laid by, enemies and things like that. But here, you get to customize your loadout right before. So, you can go through it. Basically, it's like creating a class in multiplayer. Basically, you can select what kind of guns you want, explosives. You can even unlock perks. They're not the same perks that are seen in like the multiplayer or anything. They're kind of related to it, but they're not like direct clones of that. But it's really cool to see. It offers more of a fresh experience with the games than we've seen in a while. Though a part of me suspects this could be the beginning of that kind of slippery slope of them downplaying the campaign in favor of things like multiplayer, where that was, considered more popular. But we're not there yet. So let's get into the mission. So for this mission, we are playing as Alex Mason, who has been called out of retirement in order to rescue Frank Woods, who is being held in Angola by Raul Menendez during the middle of the Angolan Civil War, which broke out, I believe, in 1975 after they gained their independence from Portugal and continued kind of off and on until 2002. You join up with a group led by a man named Jonas Savimbi, who I'm not going to get too deep into him. You can look him up if you're curious. Kind of a famous piece of shit. But basically, that aside, you are being at his request. You need to kind of help him drive out the MPLA, which was one of the two groups that were sort of fighting for control over Angola during the Civil War, in order for him to give you the location of where Frank Woods is. So you join up with them, and we're kind of right away thrown into the action. No tutorial missions, no training shit anymore. You're just, if you're in, you know what you're in for. And yeah, you basically are a part of almost kind of like a standard type of fight where it's like one side lines up over here, the enemy lines up over here, and you almost just kind of like charge at each other. You get to take over some helicopter gunships at some point to clear out some enemies, and the action is pretty fierce, and there's a decent amount of variety within this mission to really sort of emphasize that. So you're able to clear them out enough to make Savimbi happy, and then he lets you know where Woods is. He informs you that Woods is being held on a transport barge in the Cubango River. So Alex Mason, along with Hudson, who I believe was also in the Black Ops 1 as well, you both get into a helicopter to go chase after him, but an RPG shoots you down, like right when you're getting close to the barge, but both of you are able to survive that crash and then basically hijack the barge and use the machine guns that are on it to take out any sort of boats and patrol craft that are trying to surround you and stop you. And once they've been taken care of, you are able to find Woods. You open a shipping container, and you see a bunch of people who look like they're practically near death, and Woods is not much better off than they are. And it's kind of a pretty disgusting sight anyways, but a hind comes out of nowhere and tries to sink the barge, but you're able to escape the barge right before it sinks. And so you get off the barge, you're on the beach now, and you're just basically carrying Woods the whole time. Well, sometimes Hudson's carrying, but for the most part, it's you. And you'll see Woods' like head in sort of the lower left corner, just to kind of remind you of that. And you're basically just trying to get some, communications to get basically any kind of help to get you guys out of there. So you flee into the nearby jungle. You stumble across an outpost. You find out that there's like Cubans running around, and you're like, why the fuck are there like Cubans around here? And they're supporting the MPLA. There's probably some true geopolitical stuff in there, but I won't get too deep into that. But they have to, as I said, use those radios in order to get out. So when you do, you're about to, like, you're sneaking up on a radio operator so you can kill him and then take over the radio, but you find out it is Raul Menendez, and you're holding him at gunpoint, and it's this really tense moment, but Menendez basically just blows up the equipment and tries to stab you when you get used as a human shield, but you're just able to get out, and it's a pretty hurried type of escape. There are points where it's like you get to climb trees and use a sniper, but then you have to kind of drop down and keep running away. But you're able just to get out in time when a Savimbi shows up in an aircraft and helps you all escape. And that is the first mission, and it is quite a ride from, using helicopters to sneaking around a bit to just seeing the main bad guy from the game. Just right there, and the interaction that you have with him is pretty eventful, and it carries weight all the way through the game. The next mission is in 2025 in Myanmar. I think it's Myanmar, called Cellurum, where you have to basically obtain Cellurum. So with this one being the first 2025 mission, we get to see some of the cool near future stuff, like YouTube and Twitter. In the opening mission, you see like some social media stuff kind of surrounding the game, which is neat. It's neat, I'll just say that much. But anyways, you start and you're like mountain climbing with this one guy, and you're both like taking turns swinging back and forth, which is really cool. There's a part where you put on one of those like Just Cause wingsuits. I think it was from like Just Cause 3, where you just kind of glide through the air and to get to the base that you're trying to get to. And it's really cool. It's again, it's showing off some of the newer things that Black Ops 2 is doing, and really kind of letting their imagination kind of go forth with this near future stuff. I mean, there have been attempts at like wingsuits in that case, but seeing it here I think was pretty fun. So yeah, and upon their arrival, hell goes down, and you do what you got to do. You fight your way through the hostiles as they advance towards this little kind of main temple area. And then the doors get blown open, and there's a secret high-tech bunker that's like inside. It's a little James Bond, kind of hiding this little secret base under this like very old sort of building that nobody would think. You fight your way through the bunker, and you find a guy. He's like kind of hiding, this Tactus Corporation employee named Eric. He's like locked in a crate, and he's like, "Oh, don't shoot me! I'll help you out." And he helps you through like some security doors, which gives you access to the Cellurum chip. And then he kind of informs you about what Menendez is planning to do with it. But he gets shot in the neck as he's like trying to tell you, because of course he does, right? And then you fight your way through the remaining soldiers, and after encountering a bunch of other friendlies, you hand over the chip to a man named Tommy Briggs, who examines it as the mission ends. It's a fairly short mission, but it feels like it's trying to just show off a lot of the newer technology that 2025 has, and it's cool. And it's fresh, especially coming from like you were just doing like Modern Warfare, right? Which had some futuristic stuff, but it wasn't too crazy. To hear they're just saying like, no, we're gonna shoot just a little ahead in the future and see what it would be like, and yeah, I think in this mission it does a pretty solid job with that. Our next mission is called Old Wounds, and it sees us returning to the 80s, this time to Afghanistan to gather intel on the Menendez cartel. So after hearing about his involvement in selling firearms there, Mason and the team are sent to rendezvous with a contact from China named Tian Zhao. You get there, and then you meet up at a Mujahideen base, where they're sort of your contact to let you know what's going on there. And I find it so funny whenever I see like Americans, be it, in movies or fiction or whatever, interacting with the Mujahideen, or if you remember the ending of Rambo 3 where they dedicate it to them. Because this was still taking place during the Soviet Union's invasion of Afghanistan. So, but just seeing where things went with that, I always just get a little chuckle out of it, in my opinion. So, like, Woods and your contact in the Mujahideen, Rahman is kind of, like, arguing about, like, using weapons and how they're going to, defend themselves and everything. But as, you're arguing about it, it gets cut short by a Soviet attack on the compound. So everybody has to join in to repel the attacks. And it sees you moving between various locations on a pretty big map. And you actually get to ride a horse to all the main locations, which is really cool. It's something that a lot of first-person games didn't really do. I mean, it's a brand new thing for Call of Duty, being able to ride a horse. And it's fun, it's a cool, again, a little kind of a fresher thing for the game, really. After they successfully hold off an attack at the weapons cache, Mason, Woods, and Zhao are called back to the compound, and they witness a massive final Russian attack on the way, which is spearheaded by a colossal tank viewed through binoculars. The three of them, along with other soldiers, charge in head-on to meet the Russians in battle. But after Mason's horse gets killed, he avoids being run over by a Russian tank. And after Woods assists him in getting on the tank, Kravchenko, I could never say that name right, is shown to have survived the whole incident from the first game, and it re-triggers the numbers. Mason even begins to hear Reznov's voice in his head once again, as Woods is, like, seeing all this happen. And actually, there's a cutscene. It's either, I think it's before this mission, or maybe even after this, where Woods talks about how, despite Mason saying he's gotten over the brainwashing and he's recovered from the events of Black Ops 1, that he's like, that shit's still in his head, man. It never really goes away. I might play a little clip of it right here.
No. Mason said he didn't see those numbers anymore, but I don't know. Not so sure about that.
So, he and he's kind of right, because Mason clearly is still struggling with it. Not as much, but it is something that does, pop up later in the game. Because you then take Kravchenko to the Mujahideen cave, and then you begin interrogating him. And this is another major part of Black Ops 2 that's different from prior games. So this is one of probably the most unique aspect of Black Ops 2, and that's like branching story paths, or like nonlinear storytelling, whatever the hell you want to call it. The game gives you choices, and it does outcome the ending. And I'll try my best to explain them all as we get to them. But this is sort of the first main choice, where you're interrogating Kravchenko, and you have two different options. Either Woods can shoot him, or Mason can shoot him. So you're playing as Mason, right? And Woods is talking to him, and you have the gun, and the gun is coming up, and you have to, like, mash X to try to prevent yourself from shooting him, if that's the choice you want to make, or if you just want Mason to do it. So if Mason decides to shoot him, it says here, if the player allows Mason to give in to his temptations and shoot him, the interrogation ends early, and the characters will not learn about a potential mole that is in the CIA. Rahman then betrays everybody, claiming them to be the true enemy, and leaves you all in the desert to die. And after some time has elapsed, an aged Reznov will appear to rescue the team. Woods was highly certain it was just Mason's imagination playing tricks on him again, naturally. But the canon one is having Woods shoot him. So basically just resisting that temptation the entire time so that you can learn about the mole and the CIA. And then Woods just kind of in a fit of rage in the middle of it decides to shoot him. But the same outcome happens where, you know, they leave you in the desert and everything. So it's a neat little... This one isn't... It doesn't change things that much, really, at the end of the day. But it can lead into the various branching story paths, which we will get into. It's a little taster of what's to come. And then after this mission, we get the option to play a different kind of mission from the normal one. You get two different missions. You could either go right into the next story mission, or we could do this FOB Spectre Strike Team type of mission. So there's a set of 4 called Strike Force missions, which are related to the plot, and they're not considered necessary, quote unquote. But if you don't do them, then you can't get like the true canon ending, I believe. But this first one, it takes place in India, and you're just defending a facility from SOC attackers. And it's just like a training mission of sorts, where you get to see like, oh, it's like a faux action strategy kind of thing, where you can be on the ground with a soldier or like an unmanned tank or a drone, just kind of shooting people and defending things. But you can also, either as one of those players, you can sort of guide them to where you want them to go. Basically, it's just like, go here or fight this guy. Or you could just do like a bird's eye perspective and sort of see what's going on and kind of guide everybody in like a faux strategy game type thing. It's not super deep, and I found it was more engaging to just be a soldier and just kind of run around and defend things and shoot people. But again, it's cool to see them sort of do something a little different. In this one, you have a time limit to, just defend all of the, like, 3 specific points from various enemy soldiers. And I think it's really the only defense one, because I'm pretty sure the ones after this are all offensive. I'll go into them like later on. I'll talk about them when I ended up playing them, like through the missions. But yeah, it's neat. It's a neat idea, but it's something that I think would have worked really well in multiplayer. Like having a multiplayer strike force where you can kind of like set up what characters and like vehicles you want to have, and then doing kind of the faux strategy thing as like an attack defense. And as far as I know, that was never an option in the multiplayer. Because doing it in single player, I don't know, it feels like if you're playing like Command and Conquer or Age of Empires or something like that, and you're doing like a skirmish battle with a CPU opponent. Some people may like that. If you listen to this and you like that, that's cool. But I always found it just kind of boring. Like if I'm playing an Age of Empires game, I need more things to do than just like a little skirmish like that. Just a personal thing. But it's cool that it's here. And it evolves a little bit through the game, which we will get into later. But let's head into the next story mission. It is called Time and Fate, and we are in Nicaragua, still in the 80s, trying to secure Raul Menendez. So yes, another real-life figure is in this game, and it's Manuel Noriega. Once again, I'm not going to give a history lesson on him, so go ahead and look him up. But basically, you sign a pact to where you give him a bunch of money, and he helps you guys secure Menendez, who is in a cartel village there. So Noriega gives an order under Mason's command in order to secure the location to where he is. But we do an interesting thing at this point where we switch to playing Menendez. Yeah, so he's sitting beside his sister, Josefina, who is sleeping. A knock on the door prompts Menendez to open it when a cartel soldier is shot, and a bunch of Panamanian soldiers rush in to restrain Menendez. An officer grabs Josefina and begins to assault her, at one point slamming her into the like a little vanity, which is right next to her bed. And this causes Menendez to go absolutely mad with rage, escape the soldiers holding him, and then stabs the offending officer with a shard of glass multiple times in the neck, killing him. Menendez is then subdued by the soldiers and given a sedative, causing him to lose consciousness. But when he wakes up, 2 soldiers and Noriega are looking right at him. Noriega cocks a shotgun, but instead shoots his own troops. And then he unties Menendez, saying he should be in American hands right now. Noriega releases him, calling it a favor. But still enraged, Menendez then assaults him by grabbing his neck, pinning him to the floor, punching him in the face a bunch of times, and then spitting on him. He picks up the shotgun, and just as he was about to finish him off, he hears the scream of his sister Josefina. So from a distance, he rampages through the village in order to find and save her. And this is quite an interesting part of the game because, yeah, you're invincible. The whole the screen is like pulsing red with like rage. You can move fast. Your reload is super quick, and you have infinite ammo, and you're just blasting dudes as you're running just through like sheer rage. It's almost like he's going like Hulk or whatever. It's been done before in games before, but seeing you do this from the perspective of the main villain, and I don't know if it's necessarily trying to like. I don't think you're trying to sympathize with him by doing this, but again, it's another fresh thing I like from Treyarch where you get to see part of the game through the villain's perspective, and maybe it gives you some reason why he's doing all the crazy things that he's doing. But once you get to the building where Josefina is, Woods sees him and tries to fire at him, but he misses. Hudson then pins Menendez against the wall, but as he does this, Menendez sees a grenade bounce off a wall and into Josefina's room, which causes an explosion. Of course, Menendez tries to save her, but he doesn't, and the explosion ends up killing her. And then all this crazy stuff, we shift back to Mason, and we go a little bit further back in time, as we are then fighting through the town in order to cover his capture. But halfway through the mission, we see Menendez like doing all the crazy shit that's going on, and then we realize Noriega betrayed us. Woods then becomes enraged, focusing relentlessly on killing Menendez for what he had done to him in Angola, ignoring the mission for his own vengeance. But after clearing the courtyard, they come across a cocaine lab, and when Mason enters it, Hudson tells him to keep an eye on Woods. So after clearing out of the lab, Mason and Woods enter the mansion and see Menendez struggling with Hudson. Woods loses his temper, screams in a fit of rage, and starts firing his rifle at Menendez, but Mason pushes him against the wall, which is preventing the gunfire from getting to where it needs to get. Woods headbutts Mason away from him and tries to throw a frag, but as he's trying to throw the frag, Mason tries to reach for it, which causes it to bounce off the wall and kill Josefina. So you get to see this mission from various types of angles, and then it ends with Mason waking up in the destroyed building and seeing Menendez in a body bag, thinking that he is dead. But Hudson then tells Mason and Woods that today never happened and that the mission is ended. But apparently, in the concrete bunker section of the level, Mason encounters soldiers attempting to burn down the compound. Woods yells at Mason to secure any evidence. If Mason acts quickly to stop them, he can find a file that links Menendez to the CIA. If he fails, then the document will be lost. It doesn't affect the ending, but it does affect dialogue later on. I don't believe I found that documentation, but I think that's trying to imply that Menendez could potentially be the mole within the CIA, which, just further complicates things that are going on. But this leads into, we have the next Strike Force mission, which takes place in Singapore, where this time we're attacking instead of defending, and we're just basically trying to secure a control point. It almost feels like a multiplayer type of mission with just like a bunch of nameless people. And again, it's fine. It doesn't really do anything, especially after that crazy story mission we had with Menendez. Just jumping into this, in some ways it feels like padding because there's only 11 like story missions, and there's only like 4 Strike Force missions, so it almost feels like they're just trying to add that stuff there. But again, I appreciate that they're trying to add some form of variety to the gameplay. But that leads us into our next mission called Fallen Angels. So we're back into 2025, and we are in Pakistan trying to gather intel on Menendez. So we're back to David Mason. We are fending off an attack by the ISI forces, and as they're taking cover behind a bar double door in a flooded market, Mason tries to reactivate an unresponsive claw, which is one of those unmanned tanks I was talking about earlier, but this one, it has like legs and it like kind of marches around. It almost looks like one of those it looks like a machine that'd be in like RoboCop or something like that. But you're able to get it you're able to operate it, and it's able to break down the door, and you can begin engaging against the ISI forces. And it operates a little similar to how like, say, the tank in Modern Warfare 2, where you could kind of tell it where to blow shit up, and it would blow shit up for you. But Mason and Harper managed to leave the market, but with the ISI forces still in force, and they fight through the flooded streets of Pakistan, attempting to escape the attacks. Once you get out of the flooded market, you're just kind of wading through, like, knee-deep water a good chunk of the time, and you're able to barely escape into a narrow alleyway right before a bus runs you over, but you're able to survive that. But we don't have much time to think about it, because now we have to put on our Metal Gear hats, or our Metal Gear bandanas, as it were, and stealthily sneak through the water as some helicopters are trying to look for you with some searchlights. Which you're just able to get out. You spot a sewer gate that is connected to the interior of Anthem, and you kill the guards that are standing above it. You're able to open the gate and infiltrate the stronghold and sneak across the roofs. And then you eventually spot Raul Menendez along with the ISI leader, and you follow them discreetly as you record their conversation from afar. So you're still being kind of stealthy and everything, and you use some cool little future tech to sort of follow their conversation, and the game needs you to pick up like 3 specific things during their conversation. And you eventually reach a watchtower and witness Menendez approaching like a plane from where they see him meeting with DeFalco as they discuss where the next meeting with Tian Zhao is going to take place. And then DeFalco leaves, but Menendez just keeps on walking, talking more and more about it, and you're able to catch more of the conversation until a train stops, like right in the front of you, which disrupts your recording capabilities. You attempt to swim through a flooded area of the compound, hoping to continue recording Menendez's conversation from below through the floor. However, Menendez reveals he was always aware that Mason and Harper were recording him, because of course, why wouldn't he know? That's as great as Menendez is as a villain. I'm just going to say this right here. An issue I have with him is that he reminds me a little bit of like the Heath Ledger Joker from The Dark Knight. A fantastic villain, like truly iconic, but he's just a little bit too ahead of the game, to the point where it almost feels a little ridiculous. You know what I mean? But anyways, he sends out an acute audio signal on your heads, which is able to stun you. And then grenades are thrown next to you, but you're able to get out of there before the grenades blow you up. The stronghold then hits full alert. Mason and Harper swim their way out of the pool of water and fight against the forces, but they are then contacted by Salazar, who's able to grant them access to control the nearby unmanned tanks from before. And you fend them off while you wait for an extraction. After a while, JSOC forces arrive, and you're able to get out of the stronghold. But at the end of this mission, you're driving a Jeep in this pretty cool chase sequence, and you're given a choice to either continue driving or to control a drone as you reach the extraction point. And as they reach the extraction point, a gas pipe breaks off from a refinery they're driving through and begins spewing flames in direction of the helicopter. So yeah, you have 2 different options here. This I was not aware of. We'll do the non-canon one, which is if Mason chooses to drive on the left side of the gas fumes, Harper will receive a disfiguring facial burn that sticks with him for the rest of the story. But they say it's purely cosmetic. It does not affect the story, aside from additional dialogue at the beginning of a later mission. But the canon one is you drive on the right side, so you don't have to deal with that. But when you reach the extraction point, they see it's been compromised by Chinese forces who are being accompanied by Tai and Zhao. Mason explains to Zhao that they are only in Pakistan because of Menendez, to which Zhao replies that if they are truly there for him, then there would be no need for Zhao to kill Mason and Harper. Zhao leaves with his Chinese troopers as the screen fades to black. And then that leads into our third Strike Force mission. It's actually called IED. I think some of these have titles, but I just haven't been saying them. But this one, it involves defending the Afghan president from assassins. So you're just like escorting a convoy of vehicles from being attacked, and it's mainly just drones. So I just found myself like swapping constantly between drones and just blowing shit up. And again, it's fun. They're not too in depth or anything like that, but it's fun. It's nice just to have just a little kind of whatever. You know what I mean? So we move into the next mission called Karma, where once again we take control of David Mason, where we infiltrate Colossus, which is a high-end exotic island getaway, in order to find out about quote-unquote Karma and its connection to Menendez's plans. We arrive on the resort, which is located in the Cayman Islands. We're posing as Union inspectors. We get briefed by somebody, but then we have to shoot our way through the security forces in order to access the Central Records computer located in the heart of Colossus to obtain intel on the supposed cyber weapon, which is called Karma. Now, as we're going through this, there was just something I noticed, which is when you're just kind of walking through, you're just kind of gliding through, like just walking, basically. Some of those ads that show up on those little stand-up little ad things, like you would see at like an airport or something like that, to me they looked a little AI generated, like in a way that like you would AI generate something now. I don't think AI was a thing back in 2012 the way it is now. So in a way, maybe they predicted the future. Good for them. Which is, I don't know, just a weird thing I noticed. But anyways, after being briefed in the elevator on their tasks, Harper exits first, and he bumps into a woman, comically trying to hit on her before getting cursed at. Mason and Salazar continue taking the elevator to the lower levels, where they bump into some security. But failing to maintain their cover toward the security guards, Mason and Salazar end up taking him out. They then move towards a ventilation shaft, where Mason opens his briefcase and employs Ziggy, a small but agile robot spider. I called this the Q spider from Everything or Nothing, because that's basically what it is, though you're completely in first person, but when you use the Q spider in Everything or Nothing, it's in third person. Not that that makes that big of a difference. And if you're listening to this, go listen to the Still Loading episode on 007 Everything or Nothing, where I guest on it, if you want to learn about my James Bond fandom. But anyways, after Ziggy crawls through the vents, a small group of enemies are seen planting explosives on some gas pipes. Section asks himself what they're doing, but Ziggy then proceeds to gain access to the control room, jumps on a guard, incapacitates him, therefore crawling up the guard's eye in order to obtain his retina scan. It was a little creepy. Shortly after obtaining that scan, Ziggy is discovered by another guard and is crushed under his foot. We then have to move towards the entrance of the control room. And after gaining access to the room using the retina scan, we take out all the security guards, and then we search for Karma on the computer. But after a quick search, we find out Karma is not a cyber weapon, but a person. Dun, dun, dun. By the name of Chloe Lynch. And after accessing her bio, the computer informs Mason and Salazar that Chloe is actually at Club Solar. And what you realize is Club Solar is actually the club that is at Colossus. So we have to, fight our way to get there. We inform Harper about Chloe, whom he recognizes as the girl that he bumped into earlier. Mason says he has to secure Chloe, and after Mason and Salazar eliminate all the guards, they split up, go in different elevators in order to secure her. But as Mason walks through the club, he receives camera feed from Harper trying to convince Chloe to follow him. When Mason finally reaches the dance floor, he tries to extract Chloe, but not before DeFalco storms the club and ends up killing the DJ. Grabbing a clubber as hostage, he futilely asks for Chloe before executing the person. So it felt like I don't know what he was trying to do there other than just be evil. Excuse me. I'm leaving that in. DeFalco then grabs another hostage and threatens to kill her as well should Karma not show herself. Not wanting to cause another death, Chloe breaks free of Harper's hold and surrenders herself. DeFalco then orders his men to open fire on the crowd. And during this, explosives are set off in order to cause a distraction. Harper and Mason take cover behind the bar counter and afterwards engage the enemies in the club over several slow motion sequences. It's a little kind of like Matrix-y. It's a little QTE type deal. Again, just kind of a random thing in there. Feels like it's there to kind of break the game up as far as the action goes. But after killing all the enemies, Mason hurriedly searches for DeFalco and Karma through the security cameras, and then he finds them heading towards the mall to the evac bay, which Mason and his team set off in hot pursuit, intending to catch up before he gets away, which ends that mission. But there are two different little endings here, or two different outcomes after that. So the first one is Mason manages to catch up to DeFalco right before he reaches the entrance to the evac bay. DeFalco, along with his men, turn around and engage Mason in a fierce firefight. Ultimately, Mason takes out DeFalco and secures Karma, though he can shoot him from far away without actually catching up to him. And the mission ends with the team securing Karma, dragging DeFalco's corpse into their plane and making their way to extraction. Then ending 2, which is the one I got, was Mason fails to catch DeFalco before he reaches the bay. Mason rushes to the bay only to find the aircraft taking off, with Harper and Salazar futilely firing at the aircraft. Mason remarks that they have to hurry back to the USS Barack Obama. I'll go into that later, and find out what Karma's connection is to Menendez's plan. This ending unlocks the level's second chance for another attempt to rescue Karma. And actually, Second Chance is a next Strike Force mission, so we can just head right into that, which is basically extracting her from the multiplayer map Yemen, I believe. It's an assault-heavy one, like the one we did earlier, where you're just kind of boots on the ground trying to get through it. And yeah, again, it's just kind of is what it is. They try to make Chloe appear more of like a badass type of character because when you rescue her, you don't have to like carry her like a hostage. She basically just like grabs a gun and just becomes part of the gang and just starts shooting as you get out, which is actually pretty nice. And then that leads right into the next mission called Suffer With Me. This mission takes place in 1989 in Panama with our objective to capture Manuel Noriega. So on the night of December 19th, 1989, we get briefed at the house of Mark McKnight about the mission, which is being codenamed Objective False Prophet, which is about, capturing Noriega. And it's interesting because we just like go to his house and we just like hang out in his backyard and drink beers while we're talking about it, and his wife doesn't seem very happy about it. And you guys actually get to Panama during Operation Just Cause, which was a real invasion of Panama that happened on December 20th, 1989. So it just kind of syncs up where you use that operation to get in, but you have different objectives than Just Cause does. We're not getting into those right now. So we capture Noriega successfully, but are informed by Hudson that instead of being captured, he will be exchanged for another prisoner. The three make it to the Army checkpoint and prepare for the exchange at the Panama Canal. Mason goes on a building west of the exchange, where Woods goes with Noriega to a building just south of that. Woods asks who the prisoner is and is told it is Menendez. And then the prisoner is brought out with his head bagged, and Woods is told to shoot. And this brings up two separate scenarios. The first one is the prisoner getting shot in the head by Woods, and the other is the prisoner getting shot somewhere in the body. So either way, you, the player, have to decide to shoot the prisoner. So the canon one is getting shot in the head. So we'll start with getting shot. Well, actually, you know what? We'll start there. And it says, if Woods shoots the prisoner in the head, the prisoner will fall back and drop dead on the ground. Woods then walks up to the prisoner and notices Noriega's smirk, which makes him panic. He runs to the body to remove the bag to confirm the kill, but notices that the target, with a bullet wound on his forehead, was actually Alex Mason and not Raul Menendez. Woods then flies into a rage, and tries to shoot Noriega, but is suddenly ambushed by Menendez, who shoots off his kneecaps and headbutts him, knocking him out. Woods awakens to find Alex's body, Hudson tied to a chair, and David tied to a pole while in a trance. And this is like young David, since we're in the 80s. Hudson admits that he was forced to manipulate Woods in order to prevent David from being killed. Menendez says that one of the three people here must also die, or in 10 seconds they will all die. Hudson at first hesitates, saying that he has 2 kids, but unwilling to let David or Woods die for what he has done, he immediately tells Menendez to kill him. Menendez shoots Hudson with a shotgun in both of his knees and then slits his throat with the point of Josefina's heart-shaped pendant. Instead of killing Woods too, he leaves while telling him that he will now feel as much suffering as he had when Josefina died.
Your life will be consumed by absolute loss. Then and only then will you understand what you have done to me. I would not kill you, boy. Not like Woods. You will suffer with me. And then one day, you will see this pendant again. And you will remember everything you saw and felt tonight. You will remember all the years of anger and pain. And when you do, David, please, come to me.
It is during all of that you realize that David was actually in a trance the whole time, like he wasn't quite all the way there, understanding everything. So he eventually kind of comes to and then realizes that, his father is sitting there murdered. And depending on if he got shot in the head or the body, like if he gets shot in the head, he's clearly dead, and you see David mourning him. But if he's shot in the body, you see that, like, Alex, he's still, like, shifting a little bit so that he's not, like, completely gone. And that was kind of the main difference between where you end up shooting Alex. But either way, that's how this ends this mission, and it is just really, really, depressing. I shouldn't be laughing when I say depressing, but it's just another way of just showing how brutal Raul Menendez is as a villain. I haven't said too much about him, I think, in general, but like at this point, he's absolutely fantastic. Like I see why he was always considered a top tier villain in the series, and really they're right. So, kudos to them. And then after this, we get the final Strike Force mission called Dispatch, which is in Pakistan, where we have to eliminate General Zhao. It's a pretty short and intense mission. I found myself dying constantly, but I was able to take out Zhao at the end, which was pretty cool. And then we move into the next mission, which is called Achilles Veil, which takes place in Yemen in 2025, with our objective being, once again, to capture Raul Menendez. So Farid, I hope I'm saying that right, he's a CIA operative, and he's working alongside Menendez in an attempt to see what he is planning. So at the start of the level, that's who we're playing as. He's talking to Harper via his internal comlink, saying not to blow his own cover. Menendez is then seen next to a fire, thinking there is a traitor. He does not give much warning, as he claims he is one step ahead of him. Farid, Menendez, and DeFalco, depending on players' actions in previous missions, walk out onto an outdoor stage with some other militia members, shouting Cordis Die, which is a name of a later mission. And then a plane then comes out from behind the stage, and DeFalco, or somebody else, takes it down with a rocket launcher. So we have like a bunch of drones come in, they open fire on the militia. Menendez then tells you to meet him at the Citadel. You have to fight your way through enemy soldiers and drones to get there. And then Menendez appears halfway to the Citadel in front of a plane with Harper in it. He takes it down, and Harper is dragged out. So Menendez, suspecting that Harper knows who the traitor is, he asks him, but of course he doesn't answer. So Menendez then gives you a pistol and says you have to kill him. And this is another case where you have to make a choice. Do you shoot Menendez or shoot Harper? So if you decide to shoot Harper, He gets shot in the head with your gun, sparing Fareed as an ally plane comes up from behind him and kills off the militia. Fareed feels devastated since he had no choice but to kill him. The player then takes control of Section and acquires some drones in order to assist him. And then after the player reaches the Citadel, an allied plane is waiting, with Menendez captured. The level ends with the Navy SEAL securing the inside, saying that Menendez will be interrogated. However, if you shoot Menendez, or you try to shoot Menendez, he avoids the attack and then kills Fareed with a different revolver that he had. But Harper is then spared. But we still have to play a Section. We order Salazar to call for a medvac to extract Harper back to the Obama, and the player loses communication with Harper and eliminates the militia with a minigun. The player then takes control of Section and acquires the drones to assist him like before. So, there is some noticeable differences between what you decide to do here or not. But outside of that, it's a fairly short mission, and then it goes right into Odysseus, which is now on board the USS Barack Obama, with our objective being to interrogate Raul Menendez because we have him captured. So I guess before we go any more forward, I feel like I need to bring this up. So it's the year 2025 in this game. So this game came out in 2012, so it's 13 years later. And I guess 13 years in the future, they foresaw that former President Barack Obama would get a Navy ship named after him. And I imagine, I didn't play this game at the time, but I imagine at the time it was probably viewed as kind of silly, because he was, still the sitting president at that time. Even though it was, I believe the election cycle was around that time. Yeah, 2012 was an election year. So, but it's still kind of funny to think back then. But looking at it now through a modern lens with the current United States political climate, I am dating this episode, in the year 2026, it makes it even funnier that there would be a naval ship named after former President Barack Obama. I mean, that's something that could probably change in the future. Who knows? But it was just something that it just kind of sticks out, and I'm not sure if that means they're trying to say something or not. I'm not quite sure if there's any actual meaning behind it, but it was just something that I thought was really interesting. Anyways, the level is preceded by a short cutscene on the deck of the Obama between Admiral Briggs and David Petraeus. I'll say Petraeus. The direction of this cutscene depends on the player's actions in the Strike Force missions. If they were all successfully completed with the exception of Second Chance, the two will converse fondly about the recently developed alliance between China and the United States, which is what I saw. If the Strike Force missions were not all completed, then the conversation will be more sour, and the Secretary of Defense will order DEFCON 3 due to China now being armed against the U.S. But regardless, the cutscene ends with the arrival of Mason and the captured Menendez. So the mission itself now properly opens with Menendez being interrogated by Salazar before requesting to speak only with Mason, who then enters the interrogation room. The two converse briefly, but Briggs interrupts Mason with news that the Obama is under attack by enemy drones, and this leads to Menendez holding Salazar hostage and knocking Mason unconscious. Mason is then awoken by Salazar, who informs him that Menendez has escaped, naturally. Mason then fights his way throughout the contested Obama, fighting against invading mercenaries and the ship's own automated defense system, whilst communicating with Briggs, who suggests rebooting the ship's system. Salazar moves to Briggs' location, while Mason finds out that rebooting will also allow Menendez access to the server room. But he is unable to inform Briggs before the Admiral allows the operation to happen, and if Harper is alive, he'll inform Section of the Jet Wings assault on the Obama and clear some PMCs using jet wings to board the Obama. He will also take control of auto turrets to assist Section while proceeding to the bridge. And then at this point, several potential outcomes can happen as a result of the player's action in the previous missions: Karma, Achilles' Veil, and Second Chance. The player shifts control from Mason to Menendez, standing outside the server room with DeFalco, if he survived the events of Karma, or a random mercenary if he did not. Menendez enters the server room and takes Briggs hostage. Salazar, who is revealed to have been working with Menendez, then opens fire on the sailors and potentially others depending on the player's actions. So at this point, we have 6 various scenarios that can happen, depending on what you did. So I'll go through each 6 because they're all fairly short, I would say. The first one, if Karma's alive, Farid is alive, and DeFalco is dead. So if Chloe was rescued in Karma and Farid survived the events of the Achilles' Veil, Salazar will attempt to shoot Chloe, resulting in Farid jumping in front of her, taking the bullet, and dying, whilst Chloe is then knocked unconscious by Salazar after trying to tackle him. Menendez will then be given the chance to either kill or spare Briggs at Salazar's request by shooting him in the leg, which actually that leads to separate scenarios, but we'll get there in a second. The second scenario is if Chloe was rescued in Second Chance and Farid survived Achilles' Veil, and then DeFalco is alive. DeFalco will knock her unconscious before he is shot by Farid, who is then shot by Salazar. If Karma is alive, Farid is dead, and DeFalco is alive. Let's see. She will be killed by DeFalco, who just slits her throat. It's actually like kind of brutal. And then if Chloe was rescued in Karma, but Farid did not survive Achilles' Veil, she will surrender to Salazar, who will then shoot and kill her. And then if Chloe was captured in Karma but was not rescued through Second Chance, but Farid survived Achilles' Veil, he will then shoot DeFalco but is shot in return, resulting in the pair of them dying. This also results in the player unlocking the Showdown achievement, which I don't think I got. But the canon one is if Chloe was captured in Karma and was not rescued through Second Chance and Farid died in Achilles' Veil, then DeFalco will not take part in the betrayal and Salazar will simply shoot the sailors and move on. So that might have been the one I had, I don't know. But like just seeing all of the various things that could happen connect to have all these various moments here is actually like really interesting. And it's like borderline RPG-ish. You know, like maybe they were taking some influence from what Mass Effect and Fallout were doing at the time and trying to incorporate some of that. Some would argue this does more than some of those games, but we're not here to argue that. But yeah, now we have, as I'd mentioned, Menendez then is given the chance to either kill or spare Briggs. We have 3 different scenarios here. The first one is Briggs is spared. And that is if Menendez chooses to spare Briggs, he will be shot in the leg and fall to his side on the floor, and Salazar will thank Menendez. Which is the canon one. The second scenario is Briggs is killed. So if Menendez chooses to kill Briggs, he will be shot in the head and fall to his side on the floor, and Salazar will berate Menendez for an unnecessary death. And then the third scenario is Briggs is knocked unconscious. So if the player simply waits and doesn't shoot at all, Salazar will knock him unconscious, essentially leaving Briggs unharmed. After all of this, regardless, Mason then enters the server room and ascertains Menendez's goals. If Chloe survived the confrontation, she will awaken and suggest to start working on a method to try and stop Menendez. Briggs, if he survived too, will give Mason some advice before falling back unconscious. It is at this point that Harper can turn up, provided he survived the events of the previous mission. Mason then chases after Menendez, who has escaped the Obama, encountering Salazar, who has surrendered. If Harper is present, he will execute Salazar for his betrayal, and if not, Mason will simply order him off. Mason then makes his way to the deck of the ship and boards a plane, and then a merc manages to wound pilot Crosby, but Section, or Harper if he survived, will proceed to shoot the merc and kick him off of the plane as it is rising, and thus concluding the mission. So, while a lot of the events of this mission are fairly, short and sweet, just all of these different scenarios, like seeing all of the decisions actually start coming to a head at the end of the game is really cool and really impressive. And while we're here, I'll just say shout out to the Call of Duty fandom for having all of these kind of explicitly detailed out so I could, explain them to you in a more concise manner rather than just kind of riffing on them off the top of my head. So shout out to whoever wrote that. That was great. But now we move into the penultimate mission called Cordis Die, which is in the U.S. in 2025. And our objective is to protect the President of the United States of America. And this mission is preceded by a cutscene where the president, President Bosworth, who is a woman, again, I think a female president. They were really, I guess they had an idea of where they thought things were going, but they clearly did not. But anyway, she's talking to the Chinese premier inside of the Marine One. And again, we have two different scenarios here, depending on if the U.S. and China are actually like in alliance or hostile with each other. So the first one is, if they had secured an alliance, Chen will thank Bosworth for her support against the attacks. And if they are not, then Chen berates Bosworth for her lack of efforts against the attacks. So again, it's a small little thing, but it is something that I guess is noteworthy enough to make light of here. But then she is briefed by Mason, just after which the drones are shown to be diverted to Los Angeles. Marine 1 is fired upon by enemy stingers, upon which Mason asks to take evasive maneuvers. Then the mission starts off with Mason in a MRAP, I think that's like a plane or a helicopter, cruising through Highway 110 under siege by drones. He sits opposite of a heavily wounded person labeled Secretary without capitals. Oh, yeah, what the game labels when you put your little crosshair over them. Being attended to by Harper, or David himself if Harper is, dead. To the right is Bosworth, who is informed by Mason that she will be escorted to Prom Night, which is the name of another plane. Mason checks his wrist pad and then readies his gun and looks through the window. As they're passing through traffic, citizens are being evacuated by a police helicopter hovering overhead while drones invade L.A. An oncoming missile hits the helicopter, causing it to crash onto a military convoy entering the city below. Debris flies towards the truck, causing it, along with most of the convoy, to crash. David blacks out, and when he comes to, he sees Harper or Samuels giving orders to the agents, telling them to stay down. Mason climbs out of the wreckage as they tell him about a mobile SAM turret that they could use that had crashed on the other end of the road. They make their way to it. Mason jumps onto the hood of the car and nearly falls off, but he regains his footing, mans the turret, and then he takes down the drones in an attempt to circle the president's location. Once they are taken down, a missile hits the SAM, disabling it and breaking the ground underneath. Mason jumps out and watches it fall. He turns back around and sees a drone coming for him. It is then shot down by Anderson, crashing down and narrowly missing him. Anderson arrives and provides close air support. Mason gets up and regroups with his squad at the end of the highway. He can choose whether to snipe from the highway or to rappel down. Either way, he picks up a gun and fires at the enemies hiding within a crashed truck, behind a column and approaching enemies. As they reach the second convoy, Mason regroups with the team. He drives the president out of there while the freeway falls apart, running down any opposition. This is a pretty awesome sequence, by the way. Anderson takes down the drones, trying to get near him, and blasts the debris blocking the tunnel. As they travel through the destroyed roads, Harper, if he survived the events, mentioned Menendez's attack on the Pentagon, Washington, and Wall Street from the previous days. As David turns to reply, a truck is seen rushing towards the two, and then the screen blacks out. The screen fades to David recovering from the impact, and he climbs out of a hatch in the roof and fights his way down the street with Anderson still providing covering fire, destroying claws along the way, those unmanned, kind of walkie tanks from earlier. So at the end of the road, he reaches a plaza in downtown with the LAPD officers and his SEAL team. Machine gun nests have them pinned down so they can decide to bypass them through a mall to the right. More drones arrive, and David uses them to distract the machine gun nests and help clear out the mall. They come out onto the balcony and kill the enemy snipers and gunners in the nest. Anderson gets on the radio and asks for help. Her last wingman is dead, and the presidential convoy is taking heavy fire. David promises relief and advances down an alley and onto a road with his squad. Anderson says she is hit and has to set the jet down. They advance onto the street while taking out tangos towards Anderson, but a building falls down to their immediate front. Mason blacks out for another time and gets up. Anderson is now no longer talking. Let's see. They reach her plane to see her unconscious body next to it. So LAPD arrive, protecting her as paramedics bring Anderson to an ambulance. Harper, if he survived, follows inside while David, not even knowing how to pilot it, mans the FA-38, which is, it's the hovering jet from earlier, I'm sorry, and follows the ambulance. They head towards the president's convoy and take down enemy troops, drones, armor, and emplacements that threaten it. This part where you get to take control of the hover jet is also really cool. It reminds me of the helicopter sequence from Black Ops 1, but it does control a little bit better, which is kind of interesting. But also, I think, honestly, the whole game controls better compared to Black Ops 1 as well. So a drone garrison attacks the convoy, and David detaches from the convoy to chase them down, locking on and firing. The president reaches the evacuation point, and the mission ends after Mason ejects from the jet and parachutes onto the street. And then from here, we have two different scenarios, and that's if Harper is alive or not. So if Harper is alive, he will be seen driving an ambulance accompanied by military trucks towards Mason and stop right in front of him. He then steps out of the ambulance and gives Mason a good old pat on the shoulder. Or a pat on the shoulder. Not pat on the soldier. That could be harassment, couldn't it? But if Harper is dead, a military truck stops beside, and Eric Samuels will step out to pat Mason on the soldier or the shoulder, depending on what happens. It's a pretty hectic, climactic sort of situation. Considering how I feel like this game, I feel like it does the American invasion thing better than Modern Warfare 3, which is crazy because Modern Warfare 3 is kind of revolved around like Russia invading everything. But yet this one little moment with Menendez like blowing up a near future LA is like much more crazy and exciting than anything we saw in that game. So I don't know, I just find that crazy. And yes, the building collapsing moment, speaking of Modern Warfare 3, is handled way better here than it's handled in Modern Warfare 3, where the Eiffel Tower kind of crashes, and it's just kind of like, oh, whatever. Like, the way this building crashes, it's much more how a building would crash. You know what I mean? Like, if you play the game, you'd probably understand what I'm talking about. But we're going to get now into the final mission called Judgment Day in Haiti, where now we find Raul Menendez, but this time for good. We start this mission on a plane with 4 other operatives preparing to assault the Haitian facility where Menendez is. And then we all jump out of the plane via these thing called glider wings, which I think are similar to like the wingsuits from earlier. Suddenly the aircraft is hit by a surface-to-air missile, so the team has to jump out early. After avoiding several SAM sites and aircraft debris, the team reaches the ground and engage a large force of mercs guarding the entrance to the facility. After the mercs are cleared, Mason moves into the facility and engages yet more mercenaries. You fight your way to the control room. You try to regain control of the drones, but you're unable to. Menendez transmits a live webcast depicting the entire drone fleet flying over New York City prepared to attack. Suddenly, they all self-destruct. Menendez explains that without the drones, the U.S. military is crippled, and he orders Cordes Die to initiate an attack. A nearby operative finds a corpse in the elevator who has been stripped of his uniform, but the body is rigged with explosives and blows up, killing 2 nearby soldiers. Mason then learns that Menendez is trying to escape disguised as a U.S. soldier, and then you discover that Menendez is at a military checkpoint. So upon reaching that checkpoint, Menendez detonates an explosive, injuring Harper if he's still alive. Mason takes a Cap-40 from a merc corpse and shoots 2 other mercs before guarding Mendez. If DeFalco was still alive, he will replace one of those mercenaries. Menendez attempts to aim his pistol at and kill him, but David quickly draws a combat knife and stabs him right in the left leg, knocking him to the floor, and then stabs him in the right shoulder. He takes Menendez's pistol and points it at his head. Menendez taunts David, trying to encourage him to shoot him and make him become a martyr for Cordes Die.
Martyr me. For Cordes Die.
It is here we get our final choice to kill or capture Menendez. So if you choose to kill Menendez, Mason shoots him in the head and then will either attend to an injured Harper if he is still alive or just simply exit. But if you choose to capture Menendez, Mason will pull him to his feet and push him into an outside aircraft, or he will be taken into custody. And if Harper is still alive, he will be handed to another soldier and medically evacuated. So that leads us into the ending of the game, of which there are 6 different endings depending on what happened. I mean, this game has so many different endings. It's like Shadow the Hedgehog. If you know, you know. So yeah, the first ending is Mason survives, Chloe survives, and Menendez survives. Section captures Menendez, who is taken to prison. It is then revealed that Alex Mason survived getting shot by Woods and reunites with him. Section then joins his father and uncle. A Solarium worm infests local power plants close to the prison where Menendez is being held, but Chloe detects the worm and cracks it, saving the power and keeping Menendez concealed. Later, she appears on fucking Jimmy Kimmel. Yes, Jimmy Kimmel is in this game at the very end. Can you believe it? Again, weirdly lining up with modern political stuff. Anyway, if anybody remembers that. Where she insults Menendez, who is seen raging in his cell and bashing his head against the TV multiple times before laughing it off. Apparently, this is the best ending that the player can achieve, according to the fandom, where I guess Menendez turns into fucking Joker. I mean, he does kind of act like the Joker throughout the whole game. The second ending is Mason survives, Chloe dies / remains captive, and Menendez survives. The section captures Menendez, who's taken to prison. It's revealed that Alex Mason survived and reunites. The worm infests the power plants where he's being held, which gives him the upper hand to escape, after which he goes to the vault and finally kills Woods. Later, he travels to Nicaragua to his sister's grave, digs up her corpse, and lights himself on fire. If you guys have not seen like Menendez like just shouting as he is lighting himself on fire in his sister's grave, go watch it. It's fucking insane. Like, this podcast, even if I pull a clip from it, it's not going to do it justice. Go check it out, seriously. So the third ending is Mason survives and Menendez dies. So Section shoots Menendez in the head. It's revealed that Alex Mason survived getting shot by Woods and reunites with them. Section joins his father and uncle. However, Menendez's assassination is triggered with a video of Menendez commanding Cordes DA, I think I was saying die the whole time, it's DA, that is time to revolt. This leads to protests all across the U.S. and the burning of the White House. This ending happens regardless of Chloe's fate due to the death of Menendez. And in the second ending, Mason doesn't reunite with his dad. So in the fourth ending, we have Mason dies, Chloe survives, and Menendez survives. Section captures Menendez, who's taken to prison. Section and Woods are seen next to Mason's grave for a moment to remember him. The worm infests the power plants close to the prison, but Chloe is able to stop him. And then she appears on Jimmy Kimmel's TV show, and then, Menendez gets all pissed about it. Ending 5 is Mason dies, Chloe dies / remains captive, and Menendez survives. So Section captures Menendez, the worm infests the station, which gives him the upper hand. He goes into the vault and finally kills Woods. Menendez then travels to his sister and lights himself on fire. So basically, Section and Woods are not seen visiting Alex Mason's grave. And then the very last possible ending is Mason and Menendez both die. So Section and Woods are seen next to Mason's grave for a moment to remember him. However, the assassination is triggered with a video of Menendez commanding Cordes DA that it is time to revolt, and it leads to protests all over the U.S. and the burning of the White House. So like ending 3, this happens regardless of Chloe's fate, and apparently this one is considered the canon ending. So we'll see in Black Ops 3, I presume, where this will go. And that is the end of the Call of Duty Black Ops 2 campaign. There is a post-credit scene where Menendez and Woods hang out with fucking Avenged Sevenfold, and they, play a song. It's very weird. I think it was just there for, chits and giggles, but it's just a weird little thing to throw in after all of this crazy stuff that happens in this campaign. It is eventful, has so many twists and turns, some of which are caused by the player, and it's very good, but I don't know if it's as good as Black Ops' 1 multiplayer, or single player, I'm sorry, because while I love all of the variety of gameplay that it presents to you, having sort of the nonlinear progression, mixing the 80s style with the near future, and even little things like the HUD sort of reflecting those different time periods. Like, it's very ambitious, and you could tell Treyarch really were pushing things forward, and I love that they do this. But I think the sort of the streamlined approach of the Black Ops 1 campaign and the more like darker psychological horror elements of it in a way make it stand out more to me personally. Even though I really did enjoy this campaign, and I'll probably play it again just to, see various different things that happen within it. It just doesn't live up to sort of that special quality that the Black Ops 1 campaign had. But it's still very good in its own right. And in a way, it does kind of signal this new era for the series where it would start toying with like more science fiction type of elements. And this game has some of that, but it's very limited. They're trying not to get too crazy with it, like some games would get in the future. But yeah, we're pretty far into this episode because of all the campaign talk that there was. So let's take a little break, listen to some music, and then I'll do a brief little discussion about my time with multiplayer and zombies. So the multiplayer gets quite a decent overhaul in this game compared to what we've seen before. They didn't just limit their ambitions to the campaign. So this team, for the multiplayer, they really wanted to take a new approach for it, looking mainly at like create a class and the kill streaks and seeing like, what can we do different with that. So here, I'll quote it here. The create a class system was changed to a 10-point system. Players are given 10 points to use on weapons, attachments, perks, and the like, each costing a point. So it allows you to have a little bit more freedom with what you can use in your created classes compared to what you had before, where it was kind of limited to like, you get this one gun and then, these two perks and then, this kind of stuff. While the 10-point system is, limited and I think has its own issues as well, it does allow you to kind of mix and match and probably make some very crazy classes, like you could overload on perks and things like that. Like you could put more than 3 perks on if you really wanted to go that route. And it allows for a little bit more creative freedom within the multiplayer. And I played quite a bit of the multiplayer for this, and I found it to be just as fun and engaging as Black Ops 1 multiplayer was. It was still like a fantastic time. People are still playing Team Deathmatch, of course. I really liked the maps. I didn't like Nuketown here as much as the original. This one's like Nuketown 2025. I mean, it's perfectly fine, but I don't know. I just like the aesthetic of the original Nuketown. And I don't remember all of the multiplayer maps, but there were, quite a few I enjoyed playing. So, and it's still a very alive sort of multiplayer game if you want to mess around with it. So I had quite a bit of a good time with it as well. So, and yeah, it was just another solid multiplayer in the Call of Duty space. And again, it feels like they are starting to put more emphasis on it this time around than they had previously. So, yeah. And then zombies. I'd like to talk more about zombies, but I had a really, really hard time getting into a zombies match. So there are various different zombie maps this time around. There's there's transit, there's a village, all this stuff. And there were people playing them online, but for the life of me, I could not get into a match. I don't know why, but I would try to join zombies matches, and either I just wouldn't match up with the people who are playing, maybe they were private, or here and there I think I got 2 transit matches, and both of them barely lasted anything. Like, not long enough for me to really have anything to say about them. They even had like a solo option where I could just, play them by myself, which I tried to do, but you still had to like connect to a server, and I still couldn't do it. It was very weird. It's a shame because people seem to really like the zombies in Black Ops 2. And the little bit I played of it, I'm like, oh, this could be really interesting. But unfortunately, there just wasn't a lot of meat on that bone for me to check out. So unfortunately, I have to pass on that. I do apologize for that, but some of it was unfortunately beyond my control. And yeah, that is basically Black Ops 2 in a nutshell. This episode went quite the ways longer than I had expected it to. But at the end of this, I got to rank Black Ops 2 as one of the best games in the series, I think. It is a very well-rounded package that has aged particularly well. I feel like the newer the games get, the more it's like, yeah, this still feels right. You know what I mean? Like, it's, despite being a late 360 era title, like graphically it still looks pretty good. The pacing, the UI, the multiplayer, all this stuff, it holds up by like modern standards, I mean, I've made the argument before that I don't think gaming has evolved really that much beyond the 360 era outside of just looking more pretty. And I think in some ways Black Ops 2 is an example of that, where if you made a Call of Duty game like that and released it now, I think people would really like it instead of complaining about it. But, we'll discuss the future Black Ops titles as we go. But yep, that is going to wrap it up on this episode. So thank you, everybody, for listening. Hope you all are enjoying it. Be sure to do all the rating and the commenting and all that stuff on the wherever you're listening to this podcast or on social media or whatever. My links are in the description. So if you are unfamiliar with me, you can go to my Blue Sky or you can go to my Instagram and there you go. So and as I've said before, but I'll say it again, this podcast is part of the Superpod Network, which is a group of fantastic indie podcasts. So feel free to go to superpodnetwork.com and check out all the various shows that exist on that platform. It's a good time. So until next time, which is Call of Duty Ghosts, which I am looking forward to that one because I've heard some things about that game. So hopefully I will see what everybody has to say about it. I'm not sure what I'm saying, but I'm looking forward to playing Ghosts. So until then, everybody, stay safe out there. Make sure you're doing everything you need to do to take care of yourself. And bye-bye.